What's going on, everybody? This is the Live a Cool Story podcast brought to you by Story Collective. My name's Tommy. Story Collective is a nonprofit organization dedicated to using story to impacting the lives of others. We do that through a few ways. We produce short film documentaries, and we host this weekly podcast where we get to talk with people all over the world and listen to how they're living a cool story. I couldn't be more excited about today's podcast episode. I've got one of my favorite cinematographer directors on from Toronto. His name is Mark Bone. He's got an awesome story. He's a really cool guy. I've learned a lot from him, so I'm really excited to dive in. Mark has a lot to say on the subject of storytelling. We get to hear a little bit more about his story and also dive into a little bit of Mark's nutritional regimen. We talk about a lot of topics that really embody what Live a Cool Story means and what Story Collective is all about. Mark, thanks so much for being on the podcast today, man.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's truly a pleasure. This is Mark Bone, everybody. If you don't know Mark, he's an incredible cinematographer, director. I discovered Mark through the Art of Documentary course. So Mark is actually my instructor. And so it's a real honor to have him on the podcast today. And I'm just super stoked to talk about his story and his outtake on story and all the things. So thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm excited to delve deep today.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of Art of Documentary members that would be really fascinated in this podcast just because we get to go deeper into your personal story.
Yeah, no, it is. I guess I'm on the other side. I've
Right.
protected my life story with just teaching people about storytelling. So I'll get to talk about that side of things more.
Yeah. Mark is definitely, he tells stories more or tells other people's stories more than you tell your own, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a unique opportunity, and I think will be good for yourself to challenge your own storytelling abilities.
There you go. No, it's good. I'm happy to pontificate about how my story led me to tell stories.
Let's go. Perfect. Well, with that, let's dive into it, man. So I want to hear Mark, just like, how did you get into filmmaking?
Yeah, this is often the question that's asked. My first experience with filmmaking, it's nothing profound, but I suppose nothing has to start profoundly. But we got a computer, and the computer we got happened to have a webcam with it, and it was probably like 0.1 megapixels. It was a trash like Logitech thing, and there was two modes with that camera. There was record, or there was stop animation. Like you could take one frame at a time.
Oh, nice.
And I discovered this, that like I could move things around the room on camera that weren't actually occurring, and like I was aware that that's how animation worked. I must have been in like, I don't know, I must have been like 10 years old or something, but I was like fascinated that I could actually create this. And I remember just one Sunday, because I come home from church, and I specifically remember like I was in my Sunday best when we still wore that. And I was like wearing this like just really itchy sweater vest, because I remember wearing it like at the end of like I spent like 10 hours doing this stop animation. And I remember at the end of the day, like sweating. I was down in the basement. I was like, I should take this sweater vest off. And I had all these Dragon Ball Z action figures and made this whole thing. And it ended with me putting peanut butter on all of the action figures, and my dog coming in and me like furiously hitting the stop animation thing. Cause like the dog doesn't, she didn't really understand that she could only move like a few inches at a time.
Not a great actor.
But not a great actor, but a fun way to end. So yeah. And then the reward of that is you worked all day and you couldn't do playback with it. You just, you got to watch the film back out when you finally hit end. It was pretty ruthless. So you never knew like what you did 10 hours ago, if it was working or not.
Yeah.
And you play back that first video and it's terrible and things are jumping around. But I was so engrossed with the fact that I could spend all day and there was this reward at the end. It's like that sensation when you take photos with a film camera, and then like a few weeks later you get the film back.
Oh yeah.
And that action and reward process, I think, was really part of what I fell in love with, and the fact I got to be creative and create something and then get to show it to people, like my personality. I don't mind an audience. I don't mind talking about ideas. I don't mind sharing about myself, although, we joked about that at the beginning, but
Mm-hmm.
I very much will find myself talking about ideas or things that's happened in my life. Like you even experienced before this podcast, I just opened up about kind of some revelations I had while I was running this morning.
Yeah.
So I think as much as I loved the creativity, I loved being able to create something and then show people and experience their elation or their inquisitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that, I wasn't thinking about all this as a 10-year-old. I was like,
Yeah.
how can I make this better? Like, how can I actually get Goku to do a Kamehameha on with my stop animation? Maybe I'll use the peanut butter to fly through the screen.
There
But
you
it's
go.
but yeah, that's kind of just where it all started. But then
Yeah.
I never was like, I'm going to be a filmmaker. It was actually much later in my life when I actually, my dad actually looked at me and said, I think you're a filmmaker. It's like
Wow.
I enjoyed it so much that I didn't think it's something I would be allowed to do as a career.
Mm.
Like whenever we did, I was in film school. Sorry, I did go to film school, but when I was in high school, I joined the Comtech communications technology course, and we had to make a film. And I took over. Like the guys in my group were just like, they're just taking the course because they're like, oh, it feels like an easy credit.
Easy credits.
But I ended up like directing, DPing, editing. Like I remember going into
Mm-hmm.
school really early to finish off the edit. And I remember that was my first time learning that you could cut scenes together. I guess
Mm.
my previous experience was just shooting from one angle with
Yeah.
stop animation. But then suddenly I would place a camera from one angle and then have someone's reaction shot and then
Mm-hmm.
have like the action unfold.
Yeah.
Um, and that was, wow, that was an adrenaline rush, bringing that footage that you shot and putting it in the edit and being like, whoa, this cuts together. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. So that was fun. Created that film. It was a terror. I don't even want to. It was like it was a horror. It was my first and only horror film.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
premiering. We're actually premiering it on the YouTube channel
man,
after this podcast.
yeah, there you go. I'm sure the high 8 tape that it was exported out onto is in some landfill in
Oh
Hamilton,
shoot!
Ontario.
Never mind.
But yeah, no, that was that experience, and I think that's what a lot of us in filmmaking do fall in love with, is that you capture life and then you restitch it together, but you get to add your perspective on it. And that's so
Mm-hmm.
much of filmmaking is also what you're choosing to do, but it's also choosing what you're removing. And
Yeah.
that's the art of editing as well, is like, what are you taking out? And what we're always stressing to people inside the art of documentary is like, what can you remove from this film to make it better? It's
Mm-hmm.
rarely what can you add. I mean, it is often with sound design, it is what can you add, because
Yeah.
sound design is a challenging kind of, it's the thing you can easily skip over in your timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But it's often, people have too much dialogue in their films. They treat their films like a podcast, like, which
Mm-hmm.
wall-to-wall dialogue, wall-to-wall music. But film has a much more nuanced approach. But we're in an interesting time with like the advent of like TikTok and all this.
Yeah.
Well, there's still, it's like, I wonder if this is what like Renaissance painters felt like when or like imagine what sculptors would have felt like when like oil paints and all this came out. I know there was like
Totally.
in the art community there was controversy around that when like acrylics came out, like
Mm-hmm.
these different synthetic types of paints that made
Mm-hmm.
things a lot quicker and they would dry quicker, and you could do, I'm sure there's people who are still like laboring over like, carving stuff out of marble, and we're just like thinking this was like fast action media. Like, yeah, it's I'm always, Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message, and you do see how the medium now being the delivery of TikTok, quick videos,
Yeah.
many times, like watch as much as you can in every 5 minutes that you're picking up your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the medium is the message, so the message is curated around that. So now it's like that is how we consume story in so many ways. But
Yeah.
I'm grateful that there's still an audience that likes long form documentary, and
Mm-hmm.
even if they're not getting seen, I at least have a business model in my life that allows me to continue to shoot my films, whether or not they're commercially successful.
Yeah.
So
Totally. So here's a question for you. We talk about um, the industry shifting and when you discovered, wow, I can cut scenes and I can show this over here and show this over
mm,
here and kind of mold and craft the story, which is a really powerful thing. So how do you maintain integrity in storytelling, and not creating something that's untrue, because you have a lot of manipulation over the story and over
True.
the scenes that you show. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, this is it's a great question because it's a really interesting point we have in documentary. There's a big push for authorship, in the sense that the author of the film either is of the same identity, whether that's racial or lived experience, as the person in the film,
Mm-hmm.
or that there is collaboration. And I think there's positives, and there's obviously there's always going to be a drawback of any kind of push towards something.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of like talk about the nuances of that, but to come back to your question about integrity, I think you have to recognize with filmmaking that there is a director, and a director has a perspective. So it's not that the director manipulates the truth of what's happened, but I think a good film has the perspective of the director. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily always want to know um, the perspective of everyone in the film. I want to know how the filmmaker has interpreted that world. And that's where
Mm.
you get people watching the same film and they say, I didn't like it. And someone else is like, oh, I loved it. And it's like,
Yeah.
perhaps they connected with the director's perspective. And I think it's so important for directors to assert their perspective, um, because we need to grow and learn other people's viewpoint. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that perspective is like when I made my film, the ASD band movie, which it's now been renamed to. It was originally called Okay.
Mm.
When I worked on that, that was about, I'm not on the autism spectrum, but this was all about families who have kids on the autism spectrum and them writing and recording their first album together.
Yeah.
And so my whole push in that film was to remove my neurotypical perspective, but I still wanted to, uh, or put it this way, my neurotypical voice in the film. But I was still inquiring and being inquisitive as someone neurotypical with these families who had kids on the spectrum and these people who were autistic themselves. So it was so fun for me to get to be a student of their lives. And if you watch the film, I think people enjoy it because they get to learn so much about the lived experience of people who have autism and the struggle of finding independence, but also still relying on their family unit. And why
Yeah.
people enjoy that is I asked questions in this film that people perhaps don't have the opportunity to ask people with the lived experience of autism.
Right.
And so they're getting to the elation for the audience to be in a comfortable setting that's supportive of those cast members, but getting to learn about them in the ways that they wouldn't feel like they could learn, because it's like maybe it's rude to ask that, or like, but I built relationship with these families and these characters. And so my perspective, I guess, in a way, still asserted on into that film, where the film is very inquisitive, but it gave the biggest compliment I've got from the film is people go, oh, I can feel you and like your voice, your
Mm.
presence in this film. And my hope for my life and the thing I'm constantly trying to remind myself is like, am I giving like space for people to share their story in a comfortable way? Like,
Yeah.
my friends laugh because I'll meet someone at a bar or something, and within a few minutes I'm like going to the deepest part of their life, because I just love learning about people's journeys, which
Mm-hmm.
certainly you do as well. It's why
Yeah.
we're here on this podcast and what you've created with your nonprofit. But yeah, I think it's a long thought, but I really, if my perspective on my film is who are you, I want that to be present in the film. But that doesn't necessarily mean the film is giving my political
Mm-hmm.
or religious opinions. Like, despite me having those, like, I don't necessarily feel like that place for me to assert those. Like those come out like one-on-one. I want to hear who you are, and I want to
Yeah.
hear and have a conversation around that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my films. That's not where I'm putting them. But other people, they're very passionate about what they believe, and they believe like things need to be corrected, so they'll put that in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, to come back to your original question, what's so important for your films is to show both sides of the argument. If you
Yeah.
truly believe in your perspective, let's say you're saying an all meat diet is right, and I'm not saying that, but let's say that's your perspective. You should have people in your film that are vegan, like
Yeah.
that believe the
Totally.
other side, because if you believe what you're saying is right, then you could disprove them. And now it doesn't mean that you put them in a position where they don't have the chance to defend their ideas or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. but I'm so sick of these films that are pushing different either political agendas or even dietary agendas,
Yeah, they're
and
just one-sided.
they just they're just one-sided.
Hmm.
And so, it's great when you get to see a film where you have an inquisitive documentarian who's investigating both
Yeah,
sides of the perspective, and doing it in a way that's fair, because you
yeah.
have to remember too,
Hmm.
you can always edit people in a way, and that's what I remember watching a scene from a film years ago, a documentary. I think it was called Jesus Camp. And I just remember the way they cut the conversation of the mom in the kitchen. And I guess I can appreciate that the filmmaker showed that there was cuts. They weren't trying to hide it,
Hmm.
but she was talking and she was like jumping around the kitchen, like in the edit. Like she would like appear here, and it was like her hand would be up and her hand would be down. And it was like, you've cut up what she has said. It's
Yeah,
so clear that like, and now I'm not defending that camp or anything in that film. Like, there was a lot of problematic things in that on all things. But I watched that and I was like, right away, I was like, oh, I know what this filmmaker feels,
hmm,
and their perspective is too present, and you're pushing me to feel certain things.
yeah,
So I think where the limit is when you start to feel that perspective pushing in on the metaphorical frame of the film, and it's
yeah,
making it more and more narrow, so that you're forcing me to look at one specific viewpoint.
yeah,
That's where I think it's impactful. But if you
yeah.
believe in your viewpoint, and for me, my films, I always want people to ask bigger questions so that there's
Hmm.
discussions later on. I think then you need to give space for nuance. Oh, nuance is so important, and we've
Yeah.
squelched it out of our society and out of conversation right now, and
Hmm.
it's just terrible for dialogue. And we reward extreme opinion now, and we
Hmm.
reward definitive ideas. And when we remove nuance, we remove humanity, because nothing is so black and white and so simple. But I do think it is important to have your own definitive moral ethics and codes, but I also think it's important to be gracious and empathetic for the people around you.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. And that's really fascinating because one of the one of the big reasons why I got into documentary filmmaking and why I started this podcast and this nonprofit is because through filmmaking in the interview, because the interview process of your film is super important. That's
Yeah.
where you're getting the dialogue, that's where you're getting the narration. And so when I would sit down in these interviews, I was always trying to figure out how to ask better questions because that's
Mm,
how you get better answers. And so I
yeah.
started to become really fascinated with just how do you ask better questions. And so through that fascination is actually a huge catalyst to why I founded Story Collective and the Live a Cool Story podcast, is because I get to come in here, ask really good questions, be inquisitive, like you were talking about. And so on that note, for you, like, where did that inquisitiveness, if that's a word, where did that come from? Like, I know with all this like new generation of filmmaking, all this short form content, really fast edits, really cool, talented stuff. Like, but you're sticking with the long form stuff, the really well thought out stuff. So like,
Mm.
where did that come from? Why do you enjoy just sitting down with people, asking questions, listening? And why didn't you turn your filmmaking into something more trendy, like the short form TikTok stuff? And you
Mm.
chose to go a documentary route. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, when your passion and your work align, or your values rather,
Hmm.
when your values and your passion, so my passion is my work, when they align, that is often fulfill that is one of the most fulfilling things you can do,
Yeah.
as a worker, or perhaps human. So I really value understanding people, and I know that there's so much to learn. Like, there's just people, and every person you meet knows something that you don't.
Hmm.
And so I'm always like, what is it about your journey that I can learn from? So why did I choose long form documentary, or and even just short form, like more stories about people in
Hmm.
existential crisis? Is I I want my schedule. That's a better thing to say. When your values and your schedule align, that's
Mm-hmm.
fulfillment. And so I wanted my schedule. My schedule is my work. I wanted that to align with my values. So I don't value just going off and shooting like a hike, being like, hey guys, here's like this cool, like here's this like the Niagara Escarpment, like here's the 3 coolest hikes.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm gonna shoot that and get a million views on TikTok. Because I just don't value creating that content. I don't value
Mm-hmm.
including people in on my hike. Like my hike is where I want to connect with God
Yeah.
or a friend. Like I went for this like 17K long run this past weekend along this beautiful trail along Lake Huron with one of my best friends. And that was one of my favorite highlights of the summer. I did one with my cousin. Like we did this like 19K run up this mountain, and we were talked about life, and we're running through forests and cliffs. And it's like, I don't want to bring anyone on that. I want to just be present there. So I don't value including people in that, but I do value including people in on like what I'm inquiring, because I find it so fascinating. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning with the stop animation. It's like, then I
Mm-hmm.
love to show that to people,
Mm.
like these things I've created. So I'm not criticizing. I'm glad there's people making videos about like the top waterfalls in North Carolina so that
Mm-hmm.
I can go enjoy them myself.
Yeah.
But that's not what I value. So I put it this way: is if I want to be making films until I'm 70, and the quickest way to burn out is to do things you don't like.
Mm.
So I've tried
Yeah.
to just pursue what I like, and I know it's scary when you include people in on your taste and your preferences. It's like when
Mm-hmm.
you show someone like a music playlist and you're not friends with them yet. You're like playing music in your car. You're like, do they like this? It's like, this is my preferences.
Yeah.
So just I wanted to make sure if I'm going to work this career, I'm going to make stuff I like. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like when I have tried to make I'm trying to make films that don't align with what I value or what I enjoy. You feel like an imposter and you make crappy work, it's not who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've that's why I've stuck to that. And it's why I stuck to, like, it's why I will work for 2-3 years on a film about autism,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm really, really curious, if 1 in 35 people now are being born on the spectrum, like, what is it about that journey? But I don't, I think I cherish the gift of documentary, that I get to interview these families and these,
Mm-hmm.
like, a dad who has 2 sons on the spectrum and a wife with terminal illness. And, to me, what he sacrificed in the virtues he shows in his life, and that he's not signaling and telling people to look at.
Mm-hmm.
he's his I look at him and I go, you're a hero. And I
Yeah.
love that I can put him on the big screen, because I'm just like, I'm so not into like Spider-Man, like, and that's okay. Like I get pretty uh agitated around these things, but it's, if you like Spider-Man, I'm really happy for you. But I just could not give a rip, because I'm like, he's not a real person. He's
Yeah.
not going to teach me anything. And I want to know what, like, what this dad, Jim, I want to
Mm-hmm.
know, like, how did you do it? Like, I feel like I would have collapsed. Like, I feel like I would have imploded, but like, how did you keep
Mm-hmm.
going? And how do you still have a full head of hair?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like,
mean, you've probably learned so much from just the
so
people that
much.
you've
Yeah.
gotten to sit down and interview and ask questions to, because you're coming in with the approach of, how can I learn more from you? How can I learn more about you? Not, here's my agenda, here's what I want to know about you and tell about you. And so you probably learned so much from just interviews and the ASD band film. Incredible film. Where can people watch that, by the way?
It will be, you can reach out to Show and Tell. That's the person who's distributing it. If
Okay.
we do private screenings now, or if
Mm-hmm.
you're someone connected to a group with, there's different organizations around the world
Mm-hmm.
that work with people on the spectrum. We hold private screenings now, and it's a great way for people to make money for their organization and support the film. But the goal is to be broadcast. I can't say the broadcaster just yet, but we'll be in, put it this way, they're in 300 million homes in the US. So the idea, we haven't signed the contract, so I can't say it, but we'll be
Okay.
airing on them next year.
Okay.
But there is a way you can watch it right now, like kind of like rent it almost through Show and Tell.
Cool.
Yeah, the ASD band the movie. That's what we renamed it to. ASD
Okay.
band movie. It was, for 2 years through the festival circuit, it was called
Okay, film.
OK, the
Mm-hmm.
ASD band film. But now we've I was told by many people in the distribution side of things that we had to rename it because they're like, what does okay mean?
Yeah,
Like when we're emailing, TV networks and or big corporations to come support the film, it's like they need to see
totally.
that the ASD band autism. It's like, and that's what it is. It's about the autism spectrum disorder, and it's about a
Mm-hmm.
band. So yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes your titles can't be so poetic. I'm learning.
Yeah, totally. That's cool. So you talked about, the father of one of the kids that you interviewed in this film kind of making an impact on you. Can you think of
Mhm.
any other examples of documentaries that you've shot and people that you've interviewed where you've just been really impacted and really learned a life lesson?
Yeah, it's not yeah, you know what? There was one line at the end of my one film, Rescate. Um, and we shot that all in Spanish, and I had translators on set, but they never translate everything word for word for you
Mm-hmm.
because you just don't have the time to hear back everything. You
Mm-hmm.
need when I do my interviews in other languages, I'll have a translator and I'll just say like I'll tell them what I'm looking for in the question, and then I'll look and be like, is that what did they answer it, or like, or what
Mm-hmm.
what was the idea they said? There's different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
But there was one line after I got the film translated back in post production, and Ronaldo said, "What did you do with your stay here on Earth?"
Hmm.
And that was just he was so it was so poetic the way he said that. That's always stuck with me, just to remind myself of like the temporalness of our lives.
Yeah.
And I love that. Just like, yeah, you have a brief visit here on Earth, and for me, I believe in like in eternity, but whether or not you do, it's still you that if you don't believe in that, then you do have a brief stay here on this earth, even
Mm-hmm.
briefer.
Yeah.
And so I like that. I like that question. I think it needs to be held with responsibility, because you can become a psycho
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how much you're working. We were just talking about that dynamic before the podcast, where I was realizing my your quiet time, your mindfulness, the space I make to connect with God.
Mm-hmm.
I was realizing I was treating that like the way I do with my running or my work, where everything is dialed in and efficient, and I have data, and did I hit a certain amount of time, and did I
Yeah.
achieve this? And it's like when you take that to where you need to be still and quiet and really rejuvenate your soul, that's toxic. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think if you treat your whole life like this pressure capsule of like, what have I done? Have I, like, there's all these things about these calendars that you write your weeks down.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, that works for certain personalities, and maybe that's a breakthrough for some people, but I don't need that to feel pressure to work. So I did like, though, when Ronaldo said that, he was saying that in the sense of like, how have you, when you leave this earth, what's the impact that you've left,
Mm-hmm.
and who have you helped? So that would, just in that sense, he's a man who lives off very minimal money and has dedicated his whole life to saving lives in the Dominican with this volunteer paramedic group. um and so, yeah, that was cool. And actually, what's really cool about that, this is I was meeting with a broadcaster that we're going to be collaborating with for Art of Documentary to get our films onto TV, or like our
Cool.
students' films.
Mm-hmm.
um, and they told me that they built like a second story and built all this stuff for those paramedics after seeing my film, and I had no
Oh,
idea.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they're like, he's like, yeah. I was like, the Rescate Ambar team? He's like, yeah, we saw your film and we did. It was like,
Oh, wow.
that was super
That's
rewarding.
gotta
I
feel
had no
good.
idea. Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea. And it just, that film was a galvanizing moment for me, because I just went out and made a film entirely to my taste. And I had no
Mm-hmm.
client. It was just me, and I was self-funded until a person in my church came alongside, Frankie Rodriguez. Love him and his wife Jenny, and they threw some money at it. And but making that film, that was like a definitive moment in my career where I was like, oh, I don't need permission to shoot something I like.
Yeah.
And then seeing the impact that film had, and as is still having,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I hope there's people listening to this right now not feeling the pressure to have to copy other creators or other filmmakers, but like knowing that you have a style and a taste and a preference that like everyone, some people are born not liking cilantro, or like
Hmm.
for me, I can't drink an IPA beer. It tastes like soap. I wish I could enjoy it, but it just tastes like soap. So but that's just what I was born with. And it's like,
Hmm.
so it's like, I'll pursue the things I enjoy the taste. And it's like, for you, if you're creating art that you don't like, if it's not to your taste, then it probably feels like you're ingesting soap. And so
Hmm.
like follow your tastes, because you have a perspective and you have a journey, and you have a worldview that no one else does.
Yeah.
And you've learned things along your journey that no one else has.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, treat that with responsibility, because we all have so much more to learn. It's like,
Hmm.
it's kind of, yeah, when you see these young gurus, and I'm saying this as someone who's really young myself, I treat art of documentary with a lot of responsibility, in the sense that I don't know everything about storytelling. I do know
Hmm.
what's worked for me, so I will teach what I know has worked for me.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty emphatic about it now, because I've seen it now help like nearly 5,000 filmmakers create
Hmm.
films themselves. So I know our system works. But yeah, when I first put it out there, I was like, we'll see if this worked for me. I don't know if this will work for others. And now
Yeah.
it has been, and that's been really cool.
Yeah. Well, and everybody has their own voice too. And so it's like you can tell yourself all day long, well, somebody else is already talking about this topic, and somebody else
Yeah.
is already producing these kind of films, but nobody has your voice. And that's something that I've really had to challenge myself with as well,
Yeah.
because I can get really self-conscious and not want to do the things that I love because I don't know if other people will like them. So I do, I create things that I know other people will like. But because everybody has their own unique voice, God has given everybody unique personalities.
Hmm.
Somebody else is going to resonate with that, and it's all like your take on a story or anything, like not even related to filmmaking. Your voice is going to be unique no matter what, because
Yeah.
it's yours. And so that's I feel like that's always been encouraging to me, and I hope encouraging to other people, is like, even if
Yeah.
somebody else is doing it, I mean there's there's 5,000 people in your online academy, art of documentary, and every single one of those people is doing something different.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's really cool to me. So a question I wanted to ask you, Mark, was, have you always been curious and inquisitive?
Feel like we should get my parents on the podcast and ask them.
Well,
Yeah.
your dad just butt dialed you before the podcast. Maybe you could
Yeah,
call
he
him
did.
back.
Yeah, no, he's my dad's awesome. He's got so obsessed with YouTube. He used to be a systems analyst before he became a pastor, and he's like, you name any like kind of YouTuber in the filmmaking space, and he'll tell you how many subs they got last month
Oh,
and
that's
what they're making.
hilarious.
It's like, so he's become my kind of, it's great because I don't have time to watch and know what's going on in my industry.
Uh-huh.
Um, or at least I find our content kind of boring, so I don't watch it. And so I like, because I'm genuinely, I'm like, I don't want to know. I can't, I just do not care about the latest cameras, or like I
Yeah.
feel bad. Like I
There
had
is a
one
lot of
company.
noise on YouTube.
There is, yeah. No, I had one company give me bring me a lens, and they actually, this will sound so entitled, but their engineers, like literally, their engineers were like, we designed this for Mark, like we, or
Wow.
like not for me,
Very
but
cool.
we've watched Mark's videos and we see his
Hmm.
films, and we think this is like the kind of, we want him to talk about it. And they sent it to me. I was like, really cool, but I was just like, yeah, it's another it's another
Yeah.
lens.
Well, that's what's a real quick plug for you. That's what's really unique about your YouTube channel, and what had I've really appreciated is you're not super gear oriented. In fact,
Mm,
I mean, it's something that you guys say a lot in the course is story is
story over
greater than
gear.
your gear. Hmm.
Yeah, story is greater than gear. Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
amen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
best
No, I
camera
say
is the
that.
one you have access to.
It's just it's so easy to look under the hood of a car and be all excited about how they, is it an inline sixes or whatever, like straight six, or is it blah 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 blah. And then, but it's like, what about the driver? What about the road?
Yeah.
Like, that's like, where is this car going? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to know your gear. It really is.
Hmm.
It really helps you tell a better story if you are good with your gear. But
Hmm.
where are you taking the gear? What story are you telling? That's all that matters. And I was really frustrated when I came into YouTube, seeing how many people were saying like, top 3 cinematic tips, and they would just say like, buy this lens, get this LUT, and use this camera. And it's like, no, cinematics, what's happening in front of the lens. It doesn't matter what camera is there.
Yeah.
If you know, so it was fun to kind of poke fun at that. And you know, obviously we all use tropes at times to promote our channels, but I think I was inquisitive because my teachers in school used to ask me to give, I would notice in the second or third week of a new class, teachers would start overlooking my hand. And that's because I would ask lots of questions. And I wouldn't ask questions that would necessarily help me with the work. I just was really curious about, I just followed my curiosity. I'd be like, well, what about this? You know, like, or did this ever happen? And so I think my teachers stopped always answering my questions because the whole class could get dominated by like Mark's brain, you know, like, so I would actually had like some teachers be like, all right, Mark, like, you know, we're going to look past. So yeah, I think that was always there.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that came from, but I've enjoyed it, and I think I just love learning. Like I was telling a friend recently, they're like what do you read for fun? And I'm like, I love picking up The Economist at the end of a long day, and I'm like reading an article, and they're like, what? Like that's not healthy. Like because I think it's really healthy to actually read fiction before bed. I try to do like you know, my devotional, spiritual self-help books in the morning. But I don't think it's good to have that rattling around your brain, like how to these big questions about life before you go to sleep. It's good to like go to another universe, a metaphorical one. Maybe that's a good time. That's maybe where Spider-Man could help you before bed.
That's where Spidey's the hero.
Yeah, exactly. But I try to limit my screen time. So maybe I should read about Spider-Man before bed. But no, why I think I enjoy, they're like, well, why do you like, how is reading like about world issues helpful? And I'm like, I just love that I get to be transported to like the Democratic Republic of Congo, like, and read about what's going on there. And just like, what's great with The Economist is the articles are short. So it's like, you know, it's like you get this little dopamine hit of knowledge from somewhere. So, yeah, I think inquisitiveness would inherently be part of me. And I know I've even been in social settings where people have said like, are you interviewing me? Like, this feels like an interview. And I just naturally will do that. Like, I just want to hear more. And yeah, I just, because there's, you always will learn something. If you ask people questions, you can't learn by just, okay, maybe you can to an extent, because as you probably experienced on this podcast, I like to process out loud.
Great. And that's what podcasts are for.
They are, right? Yeah, they're just therapy. But no, the way I operate, and I think it's so important to have good like counselors and life coaches in your life. And one of mine helped me recognize that I have to talk out loud, and I'm doing that on this podcast right now, to hear my own beliefs. And usually the last thing that I say after a long, exhausting, like thought pattern, my business coach tells me the last thing that you'll say is what you actually believe. And so I've even told my team that, you know, we have a team of like 7 people now with AOD, and it's like, I tell them like the last thing I say is probably the actionable item, because I'm going to need to process out loud to get to that thought. Where some people, and this is a gift, they'll process it in their brain. They'll have the conversation in their brain and then bring out their thought. But I don't work that way. I need to talk out loud. It's maybe why I have a YouTube channel. So I don't necessarily know where I was going with that thought. Let me try to say something true here at the end, but no, I'll process out loud. So and I think I mean, I guess the plug there is like, get people in your life. I know where the thought was going. So yes, I can learn about myself. That's what I can learn about by processing out loud, because I'm interviewing myself. That's what I'm doing. But I can't learn about the world around me. Not for a second can I learn about the world around me if I'm only talking to myself, which is what like saying your thoughts are. So it's like, I try to ask questions, because I know inherently too, like, you know, I think it's good to do this a little bit, but I know like my Enneagram, I think people can take it too far, like a horoscope, like, and then just live their life by this thing. But my Enneagram is a 3, and the 3 is the achiever performer. And so I'm really comfortable with attention. So I think why I like asking questions is it takes the attention off me. And so it's like I live life in tension of trying to make sure that conversations don't just become about Mark processing
Yeah.
what he thinks.
Yeah.
And I know I'm on a podcast here, so I'm talking. I'm not asking you any questions. I'm not demonstrating kind of my main gift or my main passion. But yeah, that's what I like about questions is it helps me give space to others.
Hmm.
And it's a really easy mechanism to make sure I just don't make every new conversation about like the latest idea I've had
Yeah.
in my brain.
Yeah. So on that note, how do you ask good questions? I mean, as a director, I'm sure you know how to ask good questions that probe good answers in an interview. But like in life in general, how do you give space and respect to the people that you're interacting with by asking good
Hmm.
questions?
Yeah, there's many different ways, but I think one thing is we get asked questions all the time. Say, hey, how are you doing?
Hmm.
How's your day going? Like, how's your days going is a little more unique, but it's like, hey, what's up, man? Like, we get these questions asked, and so we have our stock answers just to get rid of it. Be like,
Hmm.
good man, or like killing it, whatever it is, like.
Hmm.
And so I think I like to reword my questions in a way people haven't heard. And so rather than saying like, what was high school like? It's like I'll ask someone, I'll be like, go back to your first day of high school. You've walked into we called it main row, the main rotunda, like you've walked into the front hall of your school. Do you remember what was like kind of going through your head? Like, can you tell me about that? Like, rather than saying what was high school like for you,
Yeah.
people always, because if you say that to someone who's had like a difficult time in high school, they're just going to say, it was terrible. I was bullied. But you're
Hmm.
like, what was it like? You get them to go back to that moment. Be like, well, you're walking. What was going through your head? And they'll be like, I can remember walking in that first day, and I was so insecure about my shoes. I didn't have nice shoes, or whatever it is. And it's like now, and then you're like, okay, tell me, well, why is that? So I think it's following. It sometimes in interviews, depending the person, they're less open. You got to ask the same question 3 times in 3 different ways, and you got to come back to
Hmm.
it later. You got to be patient. You got to let
Yeah.
them know. You got to earn some of their trust. Um, for some people, revealing information about themselves is very vulnerable. They don't
Hmm.
feel seen. They feel judged. So they need time to warm up to the idea that talking about themselves is going to be a good thing for this film and this story.
Yeah.
And initially, if someone's very image conscious or they've had trauma from where they've been betrayed in the past, departing from that information will be very challenging for them initially. And so
Hmm.
it just takes time to build that trust. For me, I expedite my trust with people by explaining them to my vision right out of the gate.
Hmm.
And I won't work with people in films who don't want to come alongside that vision. So with the case of the film about autism or my film about the tornado chasers, Chase It from the South. I'll say
Hmm.
that because people can go watch that. The trailer's right on my
Sure.
YouTube page.
Hmm.
You can go watch the full film. I told the guys, Chris Chiddick and Ricky Forbes, I'm like, I want to make a film about passion and responsibility and the collision of those two things.
Hmm.
You guys are passionate about storm chasing. It's very dangerous, but you're both dads. Ricky had just proposed to his fiance Terza, and now Ricky's like, stepfather, 2 kids. And it's like
Hmm.
Chris Chiddick has 3 kids himself. And so it's a tension for both of them to pursue their passion, but then hold their responsibility. So I brought them in alongside that, and so
Hmm.
they knew when I was going to interview kind of the perspective, the thesis, the question this film was asking, the
Hmm.
theme, and so that allowed them to know that like. And I would explain, I was like, I want to show like how much you guys sacrifice, but also how much your wives sacrifice, but then also
Hmm.
how much you sacrifice to get to the storm. And so they knew that where I was going with this film. And so they could see the vision. It's when you're clandestine about your vision, sometimes people then don't know what you're doing. They feel that
Hmm.
you're taking. But when you provide vision, the person can step beside you and look at that vision and
Yeah.
see where the film's going, and they walk with you towards that vision.
Hmm.
Where if you never provide vision, they don't know where to look. They're looking at you. So it just feels like you're taking from them. You're taking
Yeah.
questions, you're taking information.
Yeah.
So I've just found that effective. I try to meet people as a human and then film them
Hmm.
as a filmmaker. And so it's like I meet
Hmm.
them without my camera, provide them my vision, and then be like, do you want to come alongside that? And when people don't get it, if I feel them like, kind of hedging. Now there's a time when I provide them my vision, but they're like, no, this is actually like, I don't care about responsibility. I care about this. And so then you have to, as a filmmaker, this is where you then, to come back to your question way earlier about like actually telling the truth, is like, then I have to decide, I'm like, okay, they don't actually believe this question, this thesis I had about them is totally false. Do I want to pursue their actual, like, what they're telling me who they are? Like, is this a character I want to involve in a film? And so you have to kind of do some inventory and difficult questions yourself, because you don't want to force a person of one lived experience into your own thesis, which is incorrect, of who they are.
For sure.
Then that's not truth, and then that's gross and weird for everyone. And then that's when someone watches themselves at the end of a film and goes like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that relates to life too, like approaching conversations with people as human and being very curious, almost as if you're going to make a film on them. Like, I just think that's so respectful of your friends and people that you interact with, is just being very curious and not nosy, but just understanding that they have a story and being very excited to understand them. And also, I love what you talk about having a vision, because I think in the filmmaking world, that's hugely important, is to have a vision going into your film. But that's also just very important in life in general. And it's something we talk about a lot on this podcast, is developing mission and vision for your life. Like, in order to live a cool story, like we always say here in the title of the podcast, you have to have some sort of mission and vision for your life, so that you have a lens to look at life through, so that you know where you're going, so that if you have kids or employees, they can easily get behind you and follow you because you've got direction. And so as a director, because I think a lot of these things can apply to life too. And so as a director, how do you develop vision for your films?
Yeah, vision comes through again, being inquisitive, but I think consuming the world around you, in the sense of like, I can't have a vision unless I have a perspective, and I can't develop a perspective unless I'm experiencing things around me. And so I need to get out there. I need to meet people. I need to consume. That's when I'm saying consuming the world around you. I need to consume art that I haven't before. I need to get out to art galleries. I need to, for me, I love just to talk to new people. And so you have to, in order to, like I said, to cultivate that vision, it's like, it's good to have a perspective, but you can't have the thing about a perspective. It's actually like, it's standing somewhere and looking at an environment. And so if you're only ever standing from the same place, it could be physically your apartment, or it could even just be emotionally, mentally from the same idea. You're like, I'm staunchly this one political party, and I'm only ever going to look at it from this viewpoint. Then you have a perspective, but you have a very biased perspective. And so when you make a film about that, it's not going to be a rich, engaging film for a broad audience. It's going to just be like a anthem film for the people who share the exact same viewpoint as you. So I think vision comes through perspective, but perspective comes through experience. So get out there and experience lots. Holy crap. Yeah, just get out there and experience many people, experience different viewpoints. That doesn't mean that you have that. The issue I have with sometimes hearing that is we sometimes mix that up with like, go experience a lot in life. It means like, go stop believing in anything and just let your experiences dictate what you believe. Like, I think it's good to like to be guided by the rhythms of different worldviews that have been, strong and successful for millennia. Like I love going back and reading some of these theologians from centuries ago, and seeing what they've said, and seeing how true it is today, and seeing like, some of their experience. And you have to give it to some people from the past, as much as we love to go back and cancel people from the past, because there was deplorable, terrible, just awful things done by people in the past, and still to this day there is. But there is one thing about many people back then, is they sat with their thoughts a lot more. They certainly were up against great physical challenges. Like I just read a book about all of the shipping and traveling through the Caribbean during this era of piracy, this
Mm-hmm.
republic of pirates in the 1700s. But man, their lives were tough. They had to just stay alive at all times, but they had so much time to think.
Yeah.
And so it's so cool to know when they put pen to paper occasionally, and I'm not talking about pirates, but some of these other, writers back then,
Mm-hmm.
what are the truths that they would state that still reverberate, like still like exist today? So
Yeah.
yeah, go experience lots. Doesn't mean that you can't have a thesis. I think that you have to. A thesis
Mm-hmm.
is kind of a guiding place, like a question that you're seeking to have answered. But yeah, that's the long answer, is that just
Yeah.
I think that you cultivate your vision through that.
Mm-hmm.
But also vision is is a point on the map. When we
Mm-hmm.
talk about vision, we're saying we're moving towards this goal. So when you choose vision, it means you're saying no to lots of other things. And a lot of people in my life have told me, like, your yeses are only as strong as your no.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is so important, what's been so helpful for me, is when I graduated film school, in my journal, I just wrote down, I'm a documentary filmmaker telling untold stories.
Hmm.
And I wasn't that for many, many, many years, but I always knew that's who I was. It
Hmm.
wasn't necessarily what I was doing,
Yeah.
but I made this definitive statement. I even remember at times feeling like imposter syndrome when I was like struggling to just find work, or,
Mm-hmm.
I was working in a more technical role earlier in my career and I wasn't directing. I was like, wow, like I kind of wrote that like virtuously, like maybe not so authentically, but when I did start leaning back into shooting documentaries, it started to I was like, oh yeah, no, that's who I am. That
Mm-hmm.
is who I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a super powerful question too that I'm really passionate about, is asking yourself who are you? Who do you want to be, not what do you want to do? And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people graduating high school would really benefit from that question. Not
Totally.
not what do you want to do? Okay, you want to be a dentist or whatever, but okay, that's cool. But who do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? And that will help guide you and usher you into what you were truly meant to fall into.
Yeah, you're never gonna do the thing that you want to do at all times. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think who are you is a better question than what do you do.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's like your journey is never linear. It bounces all over the place.
Hmm.
But having that North Star is really important. And
Yeah.
perhaps that's like yeah, no, I that thought's half baked. I won't go there, but like, yeah, with so much stress on like fluidity of identity, I wonder if we lose like who we are, because we're
Hmm.
saying that can change at any minute. And that becomes really difficult then to build like maybe meaningful relationships, or a functioning society. Because
Yeah.
if we're always coming into question with that, like I know people hate definitiveness at times, or there's certain beliefs I have that people will just say like how can you be so certain? And it's like, well, I can't, but I'm going to live my life as though it is.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to give space to be wrong.
Hmm.
But if I'm always just living as if like everything I believe is wrong, then it's like I'll never get anywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Could I
great.
grab a drink of water?
Oh
I don't know if
yeah.
can you do that in the podcast? You can cut it up.
I'm not sure how to edit podcasts and stuff, so I don't know how to do that. Maybe you can teach me in your course.
Okay, I take
Yeah, go wet in the whistle, man. I'll be here. While Mark goes and gets a glass of water, this is a great time to tell you guys a little bit more about Story Collective. So Story Collective is a nonprofit that I started with the goal of telling more stories. It started as a way to just produce more documentaries and has evolved into so much more. It has evolved into this Live a Cool Story mantra. So we host this weekly podcast called the Live a Cool Story Podcast, just with the goal of inspiring everybody to live their best story. In any way possible, we try to impact people using story. We try to inspire people to live a cool story. So that's what we're all about. And the art of documentary really played a huge role in that for me. I was just really infatuated with this idea of story and storytelling and how it can impact other people's lives, how a story can be such a huge catalyst for change in people's lives. And so I enrolled in the art of documentary just to learn how to tell better stories and how to ask better questions and how to be a better director and cinematographer. and better storyteller. And it hugely changed my life. Not only my life, but my career. It was a huge catalyst to me starting this nonprofit. Just love the course. Couldn't speak more highly of it. And you should definitely check it out. Okay, you got the Brita filter.
Yeah, full on. You're supposed to drink 3 liters of water a day. I can, if I achieve 2.5, I'm happy. That's like a big day for me.
There we go.
And then you pee all night. Then you just pee all night, and then you get a bad sleep. So what's better, having a good sleep and being dehydrated, or being fully hydrated and having bad sleep? You tell me, you nutritionist.
Drink it all in the morning.
Okay.
And pee during the day. That's my ignorant solution.
No, you're probably right that I should be loading up more. But it's probably what I do, which is like by the end of the day, I'm like, I have this big like jug that I walk around with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, there's a lot left. Better get through this. And then I drink it all before bed.
Shameless plug though, my wife's a nutritionist. And are you adding minerals back into your water?
This is what my nutritionist just told me. She was like,
very important.
Yeah. How do I do that though?
Well, you can buy, if you don't have like Trace Minerals as a brand, it's just something you squeeze in there, but you can also just put salt in there. Just sprinkle some salt in there. Let it dissolve.
I'm going to make you edit your podcast again here. Just salt.
That's fine. This is good information.
Salt water.
Yeah. Sea salt. You don't want iodized salt in there, but
what about Himalayan salt? I have a bunch of that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Is it? But no, it's like black though.
Yeah. That's like a different kind of salt.
Okay, because I have a whole. I bought that once thinking it was pepper, and then I was like, oh, I've never used it. And then I just
and then your food's all salty.
yeah. So now I can't. Because I take all the vitamins, I do all that. Like I can still like taste on my breath like the lemon cod liver oil that I.
Oh yeah, nice.
Put in and like
solid.
Yeah, I do all that, but yeah, I know that was what the nutritionist. She was like. She's like, what kind of water do you drink? I was like, well, I do Brita water, thinking I was all great. She's like, you're missing all the minerals.
You are missing out because it's filtering out the minerals. It's filtering out the chlorine and the fluoride and all that bad stuff, but it's filtering out your minerals too. So just sprinkle some salt in there. That'll help.
Hey, okay.
That'll help hydrate you way more.
Put a full lemon in there. Yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah, fuel you for those 10K runs.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'll get it back. Well, I'm gonna salt my water.
Well, there you go, folks. You got a little glimpse into Mark Bowen's nutrition life.
I can tell you, I've been doing more animal-based, but I introduced more vegetables back in because it just it's just better for digestion in some ways. Maybe they say it isn't, but it helps. But
if it works for you,
I know. I've been certainly enjoying it. Eating way more steak these days, and
absolutely.
I love it.
Are you taking beef liver?
Yeah, I do 5 ounces a week.
Of
organic. I don't do it raw, but maybe I should.
As long as you're getting it in, I swallow it raw.
Yeah, I do. So what's the deal with the raw thing? Because I see that's what a lot of people are encouraging, but I've cooked it, but when I've cooked it, it's so gross. It's like dusty.
Honestly, I don't know the nutrition benefits between raw versus cooked. I just know that I don't have to taste it if I swallow it.
Okay. I just swallow it are you not chewing it then?
No, I just swallow it like a goldfish.
Oh, I can. Because I can I have an ability that you give me the grossest like people get all like amped up about oil of oregano. That doesn't bother me at all. Or like I take this one like iron supplement that like people were like, be careful, you'll gag. I think it tastes delicious. So it's
dude, you're a hero.
When I had to bulk up for lacrosse because I was like the lightest guy. And so I when I was younger, I just got used to drinking eggs, which is probably really unhealthy.
Oh, that's legit.
Yeah, I can just I can do anything that needs to be ingested quickly. But you asked me to like choose some like boiled spinach for a while, and I will 100% gag.
Dude, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, you're a hero. Yeah, just get the beef liver in any way you can. I don't think it matters.
Okay, I cooked like 2 pounds of it, and it's all in my freezer, and I keep like doing the defrost thing, and then having to I get blueberries in the liver because like 1 piece of ounce like that. And I just have to like chew it and just cut through it. And it's like, I would much rather just like swallow.
Yeah, just swallow. If you cut them into like little quarter-sized bits, you just throw it back. It goes down like a clam shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
Or oyster shooter, whatever.
I had some oysters last night. That was delicious.
There we go.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm happy to hear that. Proud of your nutrition choices.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. We can't get raw milk around here, so I'm doing
dang.
We're like, which is hilarious. You can vape and you can have cigarettes and alcohol. but you can't have raw milk. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it
My
doesn't
first
quite add up.
documentary, no, it doesn't. My first documentary was about milk, and I was actually saying it was bad back then, and now I'm like drinking it again, which always
Funny.
makes me wonder about all this nutrition stuff. That I'm like,
Hmm.
there's these things that we just completely, the big trend right now, and it's kind of partially my diet is like that grains and a lot of vegetables have like oxalates and all these things, and it's
Hmm.
like, but I wonder if we'll like turn around. I think that for me, it's always balance. That's why I'm like, I've added some vegetables back in because I'm like, listen, it's like everything killed. Like, I told my nutritionist that I was digesting liver and she was freaking out. She's like, that's like where all the toxins go. She's like, how can you? She's like, I don't believe in liver. Like, that's where the toxins sit. And I was like, oh, but it's like the most nutrient dense thing in the world, So it's
Right.
like, you're always going to get a new opinion. So for
Yeah,
me,
always.
I with all things in life, I believe the truth is usually somewhere in the middle, leaning towards one side.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of where I want to like pursue. I find any extreme measure, opinion, exercise, diet, like there's at times where you have to be extreme in terms of the intensity that you
Hmm.
exert. But I think there's usually more of a balanced rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. But we just
Are
brought that
you are
all, we just
you are
brought that
you
all
like
right back into a circle.
exactly we
We're
did? But
back to
no,
talking
I'm sure
about
people want to
life.
hear about this. But oh no, but
Absolutely.
are you so you're animal based or are you carnivore?
Animal based, yeah.
Animal based.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like potatoes and rice, and I
You'll throw
think
that in.
carbs are just too beneficial to not eat.
I know. I have to hit so many with my marathon training, or I've
Right,
been
and
doing
that's the
half.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing a half marathon?
Yeah, dude, I did one earlier
Sick.
this year, and I got another
Okay.
one lined up. Eric Floberg is going to be coming out to pace me for it, so it'll be a fun one,
Oh, sick. I just completed my first Olympic triathlon a few weekends
buddy.
ago. Love it.
Congrats,
So
that's
fun.
huge.
I
I
think
used to do
yeah.
triathlons, and that's a part-time job. I'll never go
Yeah.
back to them. I'll never go back to them. I'd never say
Oh,
never,
I
but
love
no.
it. I love being a multi-sport athlete. It makes me feel really good.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for to be done this. I'm like 2 more months until my half.
Okay.
And I can't wait to get back into weight training because I
Yeah.
have like some crazy I don't have ligaments like I have third-degree separation in my shoulder. So when I
Oof.
start weight training and I run, the tension that it just slows my running down.
Yeah.
So I've limited my weight training, but man, I miss it. I was like at my cousin's wedding moving like tables around and like I was like, man, I can tell I have not been at the gym.
Yeah.
I have long endurance legs right now, which
Totally.
nothing.
It's hard to balance endurance training and weight training. It's hard for me.
Yes. The only person who does it is Nick Bear, and he's made a whole business around it.
Nick Bear. Okay, I don't know him. I'll look him up. Is he on
You'll look
Instagram?
at he's insane. Yeah,
Okay.
he has a whole supplement company but he's a great guy and he wow, he's like so jacked and so athletic in
That's
terms of like
awesome.
endurance. Like he's beating my like I would be slower than him and I'm like only focused on running and he's like he runs and can like he
Yeah.
just did like a bodybuilding thing. Like, yeah, it's really he calls himself the hybrid athlete, and he truly is. Like, I haven't seen many people demonstrate his level.
Yeah. Oh, that's admirable. I'll have to look that up
Yeah.
because I love that. But yeah, you can't be doing that stuff without carbs. It's just, I just don't
No,
think you
no,
can.
I know. I
But,
know one of our producers, Tad, does a low carb diet and
mhm.
he's very fit. And I don't know how he does it. I
Yeah.
don't know how he does it, but I guess it works for him. But yeah, I like my carbs too much. I
Yeah.
like my carbs too
You
much.
you must follow Paul Saladino, huh?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what kind of led me. My friend was following him and started the animal-based diet, and then he got me onto it. Um, uh, uh Paul Saladino, I love the guy. He presents some of the information in such a salacious way. I'll say
Yeah.
that and I get it, he's running a business, but he'll talk about like sunglasses are bad, and it's like, well, yes, you cannot getting 15 to 20 minutes of sunlight in the morning
Yeah.
indirectly to your eyes is amazing, but just saying sunglasses is bad is like it's very he represents the facts. He's good. I just think I try to parse out some of the showmanship
Totally.
where I think he does have some really great information at the core.
Hmm.
And so, but I can't say much about him. I don't want to criticize him because I'm only like 3 weeks into this. So
Mm.
I don't have data I just know there's been a few times where I've done research on that. Like, because I asked my optometrist, because I'm going to be getting laser eye surgery this
Oh, nice.
fall. I asked her, why do all dogs have cataracts? And then she said, well, have you ever seen a dog wearing sunglasses?
Oh,
And
interesting.
I was like, that's true. And so she's like, this is a professional eye doctor. And she's said, I think what Paul Saladino is talking about is that there is huge health benefits to getting, the vitamins and what it does to your circadian rhythm, to your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But he may not be speaking. So that is true. That in a vacuum is true.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, there is the fact that you will damage your eyes if you never wear sunglasses.
Yeah,
So
especially, at the beach and like with the white sand reflecting, that's pretty harsh.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know I'm derailing your themes of your podcast, but I think
No, this is
where
great.
where I would
I
come back to this is that you want to, that's where he's presenting truth, but he's
Mhm.
not presenting the opposing argument. And so
Totally.
that's where I'm like, but he's pushing he's pushing an agenda, and I don't mean
Hmm.
that in a critical way
Yeah.
of him, because I have high respect, and the results are there for him, perhaps aesthetically. Like, I don't know his blood work, but I think it's really important. That's where I'm just like, as a documentarian, when I hear people just saying the one side and
Yeah.
just but he's also like presenting his arguments in like 30-second clips on
Right.
his Instagram. So
Hmm.
I don't know how much work you can do to get into nuance there.
Yeah.
But I mean, the animal-based diet has certainly helped me. For the first time in my life, first time ever, 36 years old, and everyone jokes about how good I sleep in my family and my friends. Like, I can, but like, if I walk into a dark room, I'll just, I'm gone.
Oh, that's a gift.
And so, but for the first time ever, I was experiencing insomnia.
Oh, wow.
I was waking up I was having a real challenging time getting to sleep without melatonin. And then I
Hmm.
was waking up at like 2 a.m. And this was it was kind of, problem is, when you've never experienced something like this, it's so radically different that
Hmm.
it's not only do you lose sleep, which is bad for your health, and then you're groggy and you're agitated and your mood's off.
Yeah.
But then, as someone who's like I try to, you want to be a high achiever in all areas. When
Right.
suddenly this thing that you were achieving great and you're getting good sleep all the time is taken from you, then
Hmm.
you're like, messes with your identity.
Oh, yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
compounding. So I
Hmm.
had to switch things up. So I was like, I'm just going to do a full 360 in my diet, because I was eating a lot of carbs and probably a lot of highly processed stuff just to keep up with all my endurance running. And I was like, I'm just going to go onto this animal base, because I had a couple friends who swore by it.
Yeah.
And so far so good.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
so far so good. I do, I have to eat some of the vegetables so that I can actually poop in the morning. But besides
Word.
that, it's like, but also it comes down to how much water you're drinking. That's a huge part for digestion,
Yeah.
which I guess I gotta be salting this. I feel like I need to go get
Put
my
some salt
salt
in there,
right now.
bro. There you have it. Well, dude, I'm super stoked we got to talk about this. I never get to talk about nutrition on this podcast, but maybe I'll start talking about it more.
Yeah, no, you bring in some of your life. We're more than just filmmakers and storytellers. It's
Yeah.
like we have to fuel ourselves.
Yep. Absolutely. Cool, Mark. Well, hey, man, I've really enjoyed this episode. This has been a lot of fun and a real pleasure. I wanted to ask you one last closeout question before we can tell people, where to find you. We can talk a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more about our documentary, but I love asking this question. I think it's really powerful. Is if you had a personal mission statement for your life, what would it be?
Yeah, it would be uh, I want to tell untold stories.
Boom.
Um, that's just like, right there is what I will do with my work and my actions. How
Yeah.
I live that out, well, I want to make sure that I'm following the two greatest commandments: to love
Hmm.
your Lord God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself.
Hmm.
So, just like the way when I started art of documentary, storytelling felt really complex, and I felt really excited to be able to simplify it.
Yeah.
I feel like, your experience, your spirituality, your beliefs, all that can get really complex. But I find that the two greatest commandments have really simplified it for me, and so I come back to those.
Hmm.
But when it comes down to the work that I'm actually producing with my hands, it's
Hmm.
like untold stories. That's
Yeah.
where it comes down to.
That's awesome. I love that. So, what's the next untold story?
I'm in the process of finding that.
All
So
right.
if anyone from your audience here knows a character who's up
Yeah.
against great existential crisis somewhere in the
Hmm.
world, There's some great brands who support my YouTube channel that are going to be giving me, supporting some trips around the world. I haven't decided where yet, but they're going to fly me anywhere to go find my next doc film, not
Very
necessarily
cool.
film it, but do the research.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in that stage right now. And so I'm trying to manage that. I just was approached by one of the bigger companies in the world to do like a doc series for them. So I might just do that for the fall and then spend early next year looking for the next film. But I want to get the next film going.
Yeah.
Really do. So this is a fun and not scary, but I always have the next idea on the go.
Mm-hmm.
And I have ideas, I just don't have the characters yet. So
Totally.
I'm trusting this process. But we'll see what the next idea brings. It's
Mm-hmm.
I try to look at it as really exciting opportunity, not like a blank page is something to be excited about, not nervous about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a hard thing to do, but that's a really important thing to do.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool, man.
I have a last question for you.
Yeah.
How many like twists of salt in the water do you do?
Let's think about it here. I mean, really as much as you can stomach. I
Can
mean,
tolerate?
can
Okay.
tolerate. Yeah, you don't want to
So
be
then,
like,
well, when does it
this is
become like
ocean
drinking?
water.
Yeah, I was going to say, when does it
Yeah.
become like poisonous salt water?
Yeah, you don't want that. I would say
When do my kidneys fail?
I would say start with a teaspoon.
Teaspoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to get those. I just go by sight.
You measure with your heart. That's what I do too.
I measure with my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Try that. Let me know how it goes.
Will.
But hey, anyways, let's talk about art of documentary quick, because I know I want to give you some plug space. And
For sure.
So art of documentary is this online academy that Marcus started. How many years ago now?
We'll be hitting our third year anniversary this September. It feels like a lot longer, but yeah, we're still young.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel super honored to be in like really the early stages of that. I think maybe the second go around I was in it.
Cool.
I don't quite remember, but yeah, I mean, I was in my early stages of just trying to discover what it meant to be a documentary filmmaker. And I actually discovered you on a podcast, and I don't even know what the podcast was. I've never listened to it since. I completely lost track of it. But then stumbled across your YouTube channel and just tons of information on there. And then Mark launched the Art of Documentary course that's just all about storytelling. And yeah, it's just really focused on story, which is why I think I was so attracted to it, because I'm very obsessed with story. That's why I started this nonprofit. I think story is such a powerful tool and can be such a catalyst and change in people's lives. And so you learn a ton about story. You learn the nitty gritty about being a documentary filmmaker. And it's really transformed my career and been an inspiration to me. And I've also been connected with a bunch of awesome people through the whole process, which I think is super valuable, because a huge battle in the industry is just making connections. And so I'm a part of this group now of filmmakers all across the world, and specifically in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I'm based out of. And
Cool.
we're constantly chatting, constantly collaborating.
Your buddies with Jonathan DeSoto, then, is he one of your homies from the Pacific Northwest?
Not a homie yet, unfortunately, but I know of him.
Yeah. He has a strong presence in I think the Portland area, that sort of section of the map.
Yeah, I've definitely chatted with him. That's really cool. So yeah, that's Art of Documentary. Is there anything I want to give you an opportunity to plug Art of Documentary and your YouTube channel? So go ahead.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter where you are on your journey. Art of Documentary, we've designed it so that you can jump in at any stage. We do the complete guide to telling compelling documentary film. So that's from learning what a good story is. Like if you're like, I think I know what a good documentary is. We break that down.
Mm-hmm.
We break down how to find a story, and then we break down how to shoot that, edit that. But we do this through many disciplines. So even if you're like a seasoned veteran, we've had people from National Geographic and all these other organizations jump in and take their teams through Art of Documentary, because the process gets advanced. We have module 2, the advanced section, and we have 5 courses now that range from beginner documentary work, advanced documentary work, editing, running your business so that you have time to shoot your documentaries, and then our new course, which is releasing, Cinematic Eye, which is like the complete guide to compelling visuals and improving your visual storytelling. That one's cool. That one has the most amount of instructors from different
cool
facets of the industry coming in. but we have you covered. And what's been so cool is when AOD first launched, everyone talked about the education they received from it. But now when we do testimonies, just in lockstep with the education, people talk about the community. Mm-hmm. And just like you mentioned, Tom, how you've like found people in your kind of neck of the woods. That's the biggest thing. My career changed when I started building a few key relationships and journeying along some other filmmakers who have the same stage and place as me. And so we've tried to create an online community, which then manifests itself into the real world. And people are hiring each other from AOD. They're around the world. Now what's so cool, and I'm experiencing this, I'm doing this potentially doing this documentary series around the world. And where I'm just gonna be hiring AOD filmmakers from these countries. And so it's like, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. And I don't even think you go, but you can go somewhere fast. But if you want to go far, if you really want to get to your goal, you go together. And that's what we've done with AOD. Yeah. And what's great with that is you have the assurance when you join the AOD community that you have people who've been taught through a similar system as you, and you all have different worldviews and perspectives, but you know, at the core of that, you all know what a good story is. And so our teaching is sound because it's steeped in our experience. And it's backed up by all of the testimonies that we have, which is, thousands of filmmakers creating their first films or their second films, or getting them into film festivals and getting retainer clients. So their businesses are making six figures now. That's been so fun getting to see people thrive. That's been one of the most exciting things. And so I think if you're a filmmaker, I just don't know why you wouldn't be part of AOD, not because it's a product I'm selling, but because you need community. You need community. Maybe, and if you already have that, that's good. Go crush that. But for anyone who doesn't have, they're feeling like they don't have the right like-minded filmmakers around them. And even if you do, you can get some in other cities, you never know. My biggest opportunities in my career was when I bought a plane ticket and went to a city and met with someone. And so, those are moments that your career is unlocked. And so, that's what's behind the doors of AOD is some huge kind of groundbreaking experiences for your career.
Yep. There you go. So artofdocumentary.com or theartofdocumentary.com?
Theartofdocumentary.com.
Theartofdocumentary.com. Okay. Yeah. And what about your YouTube channel? Where can listeners find you? Just my name, Mark Bone. Mark Bone.
You can type that in. We also have a channel for AOD with some of our top films. We're slowly releasing those on there as well. But just type in my name. Yeah. And you can follow Art of Documentary on Instagram as well. We're on there, and we're always putting out teaching videos on that as well.
Yeah, 100% recommend it. And this was an awesome episode, Mark. Thank you so much. I really had a good time. I think we touched on a lot of awesome topics that Story Collective and the Live a Cool Story podcast are just all about. So really exciting. Can't wait to post this one. And thanks so much.
Amazing. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Tom.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to today's episode. The Art of Documentary is opening their doors again on September 8th. If you are interested in storytelling, if you're a director, a cinematographer, I highly recommend enrolling in this course. I've learned so much from Mark. I know thousands of other people have as well. He's a great instructor, him and Michael Del Monte. So many great nuggets in this course, things that you'll never learn on YouTube. Everybody's talking about how to be a better cinematographer and all this stuff, but they really dive into how to be a better storyteller. And telling stories where the magic happens. So doors open again on September 8th. Highly recommend getting on that wait list. We are hosting a podcast series on Art of Documentary members' stories. If you are an AOD member and you've got an awesome story that you want to share, please DM me on Instagram, shoot me an email at tommy@storycollective.us. I would love to hear it. Would love to talk about getting you on the podcast. Would also love to talk to more storytellers and hear their take on story, hear their story and how it's impacted their lives. Thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. We'll see you next time.